Welcome to the D&D Fitness Radio podcast, brought to you by your hosts Don Saladino from New York City and Derek Hansen from Vancouver, Canada.
So have you met my friend Merle Liivand?
No,
from Estonia. So Merle's an accomplished Estonian swimmer. She's just set the Guinness Book of World Records for the longest monofin swim. I think it was 44 kilometers. She's even got the Guinness Book of World Records. See that?
Oh, wow.
So she basically swam 26 miles without using her arms.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I know.
She goes, I know.
I couldn't swim across a pool that way.
You know, it's interesting because Merle's up here right now because I invited her to do a swim with me tomorrow. It's a charity swim for the GI Go Fund. You know, my friend Jay Redman and Dr. Gabrielle Lyon and Shane Kronstead and Shane and Jay were our SEALs. And the charity, the GI Go Fund, supports a lot of the, I think it's just military. I don't think it's just SEALs, but military when they leave, service. A lot of them are having a difficult time finding placement, and I think there's an average of about 22 suicides a day from military. Yeah. And this is so like tomorrow we're gonna have to swim from Jersey City to a barge at the Statue of Liberty. We get up, we do 22 pull-ups, 100 push-ups, jump off the barge, swim to the Ellis Island, 22 pull-ups, 100 push-ups. And then from there, we have our longest leg, which is going to be to South Manhattan, where at that point, I think we run like a mile or two up through, I think it's to the monument, to the 9/11 memorial. And it's to basically raise money for the charity. And, I think in a way, celebrate what our military, I think it's our overall military does for us. I mean, they're the true heroes. So I think, what's that?
Are you guys going to have a race where she just uses her legs and you get to use all your limbs?
It doesn't matter. She'll still kill me.
I want to know.
We just got out of the water. We just did an open water swim together, which is it was almost 2 miles. And, she swims ahead, hangs out. I catch, she waits for me, gives me.
That's in the ocean or in a lake or in the bay or? That's
like a harbor.
Yeah.
Harbor? Okay.
But you do some crazy swimming, right?
I do. I mean, it's actually, it is more fun to do a crazy swimming than just being somewhere hanging out on a flat water. I like swimming against the current, especially training against rip current. That's my favorite.
Is that really?
Yeah.
Who says that? That's like saying that, like, hey, I like running in a storm up a hill, barefooted. it's like I'm going to do an ultra marathon. That's ridiculous. So,
but that builds the character.
Yeah.
Like.
She was in the water. Did you get bit today a couple of times?
Yeah, by planktons. She
got bit by some planktons and.
Really?
Behind her, she's like, I got bit, and I'm like.
I didn't know planktons were so aggressive.
Well, they seem to like more like maybe Estonian skin. I don't know. I'm just trying to figure out why they always attack me, like the jellyfishes and everybody. But again, it builds the character.
Oh, thank you.
I want that baby.
Yeah, go take it. She wants Blake's Betty Buzz right now. She's literally like eyeing it.
Because I keep seeing that in his stories.
Yes. Which flavor?
Hopefully, it's not disappointing.
Well, she's got to lie if it is, because we're on the podcast right now.
Yeah.
She's got to get. No, I keep it in the fridge. They're delicious.
So, world record 11. Is it 11 hours?
11 hours and 54 minutes. So
are you allowed to do things like eat, drink during this period? And
yeah, but I'm not allowed to hold on anything. The moment when I hold on, the record is off.
Okay, so like hold on to the boat that's following you and all that, and yeah okay.
Like just because I want to like chill and relax. No.
What type of things would you make sure that you had in terms of like nutrition along the way? Obviously, things that are easy to eat.
Well, nothing ridiculous. It's a baby food and chicken soup, but it helps me on the way. But the most important thing, what it is to figure out, the saltiness, because you're swimming in an ocean where it's salt and the sun, and you have to make sure that you are hydrated, right? So I have to always figure out that every 30 minutes I get like a coconut oil on my mouth just to wash it off all the salt and kind of making sure that I don't get dehydrated, because that's the craziest thing what can happen with you.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because when I started training, when did I start training for this? May?
Yes. So I think I flew here 28th of May or something.
Yeah. So I was, I swim in high school, but I graduated high school in 95. So I haven't done anything structured or competitive or consistent since 1995. So, I mean, you're going on, what is that? 25 years, 27 years. So I jump in the pool and listen, I get it. Like, I know when you're not doing something, you're going to start doing it and you're going to feel like crap. I did a few laps and I was like, oh my God, like this is a problem, right? Like, I don't know if I'm going to be ready. It was actually really discouraging. And I called her up and she's like, let me start sending you some workouts. So she starts sending me some workouts and she's like, I got a crazy schedule. I don't know. She, you know what? I'm just coming in for a night. Like, literally, like I think she landed at 11 p.m., was to my house by 1 o'clock. We were up early the next day working out, and then we were in the pool at the Y. And she just kind of went through some technical stuff with me that was really hard to grasp. Still right now to this day, sculling. I feel like a complete idiot doing it. But it's funny how, as a few weeks go by, things that might have been discouraging, or you might have been saying to me, your strokes are quick, like glide a little bit more. And I'm like, glide, what do you mean? And then, like, even today I got a little quick in the beginning, and you're like, glide, and you're like, it's better, and you can start feeling it and you feel that connection. I think it's the same thing with anything else. I think a big problem with any type of fitness, right, is that in the beginning there is a skill set. There is this like period of having to adapt and learn. And when your wires, I always say your wires, when they're all crossed and you don't know what you're doing, people get discouraged and they're like, I don't want to do it. I'm done.
Right. The patience is the key in anything. And that's the one thing what I try to adopt with clients, but also with my own swimming and everything. Because I think that's the typical thing that we want now. We want to, maybe like we just live for 3 months on some goal, but the truth is that you should adopt those things for a lifetime, right? And then patience is really where I feel so many people just run off when they feel that they don't have patience anymore to do it.
Yeah, Derek, don't you see that with some of the running drills? Like, you have to start getting people to do the A skips and certain things where they're just all over the place, right?
Yeah, and I've worked with competitive swimmers for quite a while too at the collegiate level, and I was always, blown away by like just standing on the pool deck and watching them do their recovery swims, and it looks so easy. Like, they just look like fish, and there's no way. I mean, I'm a horrible swimmer. I can swim to save my life, but that I was just too stiff, and I felt like I was sinking all the time, and I just kept fighting it. But certainly, just watching people who know what they're doing in the water is just different. It's just altogether different. It's like, I think my friend Lauren Landau, he's the strength coach for the Denver Broncos, but he's worked with a swimmer, like a top American swimmer, gold medalist, world record holder, and he said that it was like everybody calls it a feel sport, so that if she was out of the pool for a week, she would lose feel for the water, and she had to get back in the water and just keep working it and just get that feel back. So that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, I mean, one of the hardest thing to explain people is it's a different environment. We are so used to be on the land and do things, but when you are losing like 1 day on swimming, that means 3 days to work it back. And that's why, like, for example, Michael Phelps like never took the day off, because he was more scared of that, losing the water feeling. And that's the one thing what on my own professional career I've been trying to find a balance, that when I have to be on business calls or on expos or flying around the world and doing other things, not being on a pool, that I'm not freaking out that I'm losing the water feeling like in 3 days. And it's just everything. Like when I teach Dawn and I explain, like, you know, make sure that you don't pull your arm like straight or this way, or there is a lot of physics also around it, because again, it's a different environment. You're dealing with the different consistency of the waters and stuff.
What do you feel like? I mean, scientifically, is there any backing to how many days you shouldn't take off, or you just said 3 days? Like, is that just a thought out figure in swimmers' heads, or is there something really to that?
I personally believe it's like some of those coaches have created this kind of thing, and to say that, to kind of freak out the swimmers, because when I have been off because of some kind of injury or something, in reality, it's like a bicycle. You never lose it. It is somewhere still inside you, but they usually say that swimmers only take 3 weeks off in a year, and that's like disaster for a swimmer. So I try to keep up and do things like.
And do you feel like you lose that much if you do take a week off?
You definitely feel that, but it's also mental.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Like,
yeah, it's just like sometimes I really feel it's just some kind of stigma what the coaches are trying to tell the swimmers. Definitely when you're on the highest peak and you're taking like a week off, you're not going to feel the same times clicking, you know?
Right.
So, but everything you can work back towards, and the swimming is such an amazing sport in a sense. Like you were swimming with the 50 and 60-year-old master swimmers and couple of practices, and they're just killing you because they have that habit still, and they maybe have taken, you know, 3 weeks.
Young guys are going to be aggressive and they're going to fight it, and these guys are just gliding. And like the one area I think I really need to improve upon is my kick. Like I don't feel like I use my legs as much as I should be using it. I feel like I am more, you know, it's got nothing to do with my legs. No, my legs are the strongest part of my body. I just think that in high school, when I was swimming, I was probably a little bit more of an arm dominant swimmer. So that's why it does help. Like in the beginning, when I threw the fins on, I'm like, oh, this is just a crutch. And then I felt the sensation of what it needed to feel like to have fins on. And you're like, wow, these, like that, probably more than any sport I've ever been a part of, the fins, and what are they called? The hand paddles?
Yeah.
The hand paddles were probably the most extreme when it came to teaching. I would literally put it on for a lap or two and then kick it off. And I would feel, it would force you into feeling the sensation that you need to feel in the water. Normally even golf training tools, like you do them, you disconnect, you own it a little bit. I just felt like with those swimming devices, it was way more abrupt, and most people would think, oh, I'm not using that, it's kind of cheating. I'm like, no, like I'll throw them in every practice now. I carry them in my bag because I want to get that sensation. You know, after my warm up, I want to get that sensation of pulling and kicking and doing it the right way.
Yeah, and it corrects you. Like the one thing what I feel so many people, you know, taking the swimming and then they kind of run off is your best friend is that black line on the bottom of the pool, or fishes in the ocean, right? And when something doesn't click to you and you feeling like, oh, those paddles are working against me, or those fins are working against me, the first thing what you're gonna do is like, I'm out, you know, I'm gonna throw them out. But in the end of the day, you have to think about what is the purpose of going those laps? Are you doing quantity laps or quality laps? Was those, let's say I give you 8 times 100, was those hundreds 3 laps quantity and 1 was the good one, or those 8 100s were really, really quality work? And those fins and paddles are there to really fix you to have a quality work. And I feel like when Ironmans come and tell me, oh, I do 60 laps, I always ask how many of those were quality work. And they all are like, what do you mean? You know, like, because you don't want to waste your time in a pool.
Well, it reminds me about what Derek does with sprint coaching. Like you're not, Derek, having people, this is not about getting you tired cardiovascularly, right? Like the challenge is, and it's almost a little deceiving in the beginning when you turn to someone and you say 10 meters, right? Or 20 meters or falling starts. You're suddenly like, in the beginning, people are like, oh, like, is that enough? Like, I don't need, like, you're really like, and he'll have him rest in between, specific sets. And that's to instill that quality, right? Okay.
Yeah, and I was thinking like, obviously you did the world record, and I assume it's like a dolphin kick with the monofin, right?
Yeah.
And when I watch competitive swimming, they're doing that as a power move off the wall, and they limit how far they can go with that. So how is it different to do, say, for power versus like 11 hours of using that same kick? That seems like it's quite different.
Right. I mean, if we don't have those rules anymore in a pool, when you kick off the wall that you can only go 50 meters, I believe everybody will go even 50 underwater just for that speed, because you really can really be fast, but you can be fast on a certain sprint hours, right? The sprint distance. But when I was swimming my 11 hours, I mean, it is all core, right? And you have to deal with the currents coming against you, and then jellyfish bits you and everything. But most of it is to figuring out to make sure that you are close to water surface, and we call that fifth stroke. What is the the underwater no using arm strokes, and to make sure that you never really pull, because the moment when you go from butterfly kick to the pool, the things change, the rhythm changes.
Yeah.
And when I swam the 11 hours, the number one critical moment was to me hold the arms up for 11 hours like that,
Oh my God,
and
right?
to make sure that you don't pull anywhere, because that's how the record is set up, and it's set up to challenge any guy who wants to.
What does that feel like? What does that feel like staying in that position? I mean, obviously you have the capacity to do it because you did it, but even you, I mean, that's the first time you swam for 11 and a half hours, right? I mean, you never necessarily, how do you train for that, right? So what did you feel like at any point during the swim? Were you like, oh my God, I can't hold my arms up? Or do you just stop thinking about it at a certain point?
No, not really. I mean, I use a lot of, I call that switch the life mode on my head. It's like when someplace things feel negative, or it's like I'm fighting against the force, I tell myself, okay, now it's like, it is feeling negative. It's time to switch to positive. Start thinking like, oh, hair is tight. Let's make sure that hair is like flowing through my mind. I have to tell myself, and kind of like fix the parts on my body, because it can be that I'm swimming on the side, and then my hip is like totally destroyed, and I have still 6 hours to go, right? So I have to like figure out on my own head how to like fix that pain spot. And I feel that.
What about breathing? Like I'm thinking, how do you breathe? If, like, I know if you do the front crawl, you can do this, or if you're doing the breaststroke, you can. How do you breathe?
So basically, you hold the number 11, and you just lift the head up and head down again.
Wow.
And most of.
Try that, by the way.
I can't.
I want you, the next time in your pool, anyone listening to this right now, try that. Try like Google Merle Liivand, Liivand.
Yes.
Okay. Google her name. Google Guinness Book of World Records. You'll pull up YouTube videos of her doing that. I want anyone on here to try and emulate and tell me what one lap feels like. Your wires are going to be crossed so bad. Now that was probably 20 seconds for you guys. Now add in another 11 hours and whatever it was, 50 minutes?
11:54, yeah.
11:54, so 11:53:30. Like that's it's sickening.
Yeah, I'm probably swallowing half the pool, like, whatever.
Yeah, and then your hips might be dropping.
Oh, absolutely.
You have to still get them close to water surface.
So I actually take some credit for her breaking this record, and I'm going to tell you why, right? You remember the story in Miami when you and Tone came down? So her and Tone, so I meet her for lunch in Miami with Tone, my kids. Where was my kids there that time? Was
Yeah,
that
because it was our birthdays.
yeah, so it was my kids, my wife, Joel came by,
Yeah.
and we're all sitting at this
Lily Koi.
this breakfast spot in South, all the way down south point of South Beach. And she walks in and her face is like blistered and she's got bandages all over her feet. And I'm like, we already know, in a good way, we already know she's nuts. Like none of us could do what she does.
That was a day after.
It was a day after. So I'm like, Merle, what the F happened to you? Like this and that. And she's like, oh, I did this swim to, I think, help clean up the oceans, right?
Yeah, and it was also my birthday. I turned 30, so I swam 30 kilometers as a record. Because
why not?
Because I wanted to extend my 2 records to the 3rd time, and I was totally destroyed.
Which is what? What is that? 30? So 30 kilometers is like 19 miles?
18.8.
18.8. So Tone and I, she says 18.8. So immediately, because we've been such good friends for a while, but we got to break her chops because this is like Merle calling me up saying that she sets a Guinness Book of World Records. I'm like, oh yeah, congratulations. Like it's just like every other week something's happening, right? This is the truth. So she comes in, she looks at Tony, and she goes, we're like, how long was that? Like 19 hours. And my buddy Joel's like
9.
Oh my God, 9 hours?
Yeah.
9 hours, 19 miles.
Yeah.
So immediately everyone's like, oh my God. And we're like, what's that about? And she's like, she's sitting here like blisters on her face, no skin on her feet. And she's like, what do you mean? We're like, why do you stop at 19 miles? Like the marathon is, what's the marathon? 26 points, 0.6 or 2? What is it?
2, I think it's 26.2.
26.2. And we're like, I'm looking at her, I'm like, Merle, shame on you. I'm like, you had an extra 7 miles, which you can do in your sleep. How do you stop at 19? So we look over at her now. Now she's like this. She's not like saying a word to it. And we're like eating our breakfast and we like completely dismiss it and this and that, yada, yada. She calls me the next day and she's like, all right, I'm going to do it. And I'm like, do what? What are you talking about? I think we went out that night. Didn't we go out that night or something? And I'm like, do what? She's like, no, I just called in. I'm gonna break my record. I'm gonna do 26.2. And I'm like, Merle, we were joking. Like, it's like, this is a joke.
You guys were joking.
No, but she got all pissed off over it. She's like, no, watch. And Tony and I called Tony. I'm like, Merle's going for the 26.2. And he's like, does that surprise you? Like, well, of course. Like, he goes, I knew it this time we brought it up.
The funny thing is that we've interviewed guys who are Navy SEALs and gone through testing. And one of the things they do is they bind their feet together and their hands. And this is essentially what that is. And that's like, a drowning test. And meanwhile, she's swimming like this. I get anxiety just thinking about it.
Well, you should see how I trained for that. Like lifeguards were running off their chairs and looking like, are you seriously doing this? Not just 1 lap, not just 2 laps. You're going for that 10 minutes right now. Like I was swimming and holding like the ankle weights, like
the ones you made me buy.
Ankle weights, and I was holding the hands up and just kicking same time. And they were like, are you like, okay? And I'm like, but it has a lot to do with my background and how I have brought up to this world and never stopping, I guess,
Yeah, were you a competitive swimmer, and what were your favorite strokes?
I still am competitive swimmer.
Well, you know what I mean? Like when you were young, like were you doing like all the different strokes and
So I had a situation at the age of 11, my lung collapsed, and my family doctor told me that I should try swimming because it helps to kind of work out your lung and ventilation. So I went to swimming, and in a year I made it to Estonian nationals. I won. I actually broke my forehead. I told the Don today, I broke my forehead, got 14 stitches here, my neck shift, and everybody in the hospital told me that you should go home and rest. But I went next day Estonian nationals and won 4 gold medals in breaststroke events. So I started as a breaststroker. I made it to the Youth Olympics. I went to World Championships in juniors. I did everything. And then 2010, I kind of like burned out, and I kind of like wanted to have a change. So I moved to Miami to study Spanish and study what is this huge America is about, because America is known for sports, and I just wanted to change. And then in these years, I have become, from breaststroke, I became an ice swimmer.
What is that?
That's a rabbit.
No. What is that?
That's a fox.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that guy.
That's a fox.
Yeah, it was running across your front yard.
It looks like a Chernobyl fox.
Those
Release the
things-
hounds. Release the hounds.
Aren't those things dangerous?
No, they're,
Eh, they can have rabies.
Foxes?
yeah, they run around and they're curious, but they don't.
I've
stay-
never, I've been, sorry to interrupt. I keep going. How can you see a fox?
So I moved to Florida, I became an ice swimmer, and then I started doing triathlon, and I was like, this small part of swimming there seems so boring. I want to do more of it. So I became open.
What's ice swimmer, you said?
Yeah.
So you are swimming in ice, like in very cold water.
Yeah, so they cut out the ice and they put the lane lines like a normal pool. It's just
It's
that
exactly what you think it is.
water is
Okay.
32 Fahrenheit, and you can't use any wetsuit. So
And why you're looking at me today, like, oh, I think the water's gonna be cold. I'm like, are you serious? Like, you got into a cold plunge the other day and you were like, oh, this feels like a Estonian bathtub.
Like, yeah, Siberian swimming championships.
This
Jeez.
is nothing. This is Estonian bathtub. I was like, okay, whatever you say.
yeah.
But
So-
it is. So we got connected. God, I think we got connected through social media.
Instagram.
How weird is that? Probably about 6 years ago.
Yeah.
Probably about 6 years ago. She told me she was trying to qualify for the Olympics, and she wanted to come in and talk to me about training. So she came in, and then we kind of figured out who she was and what gear she runs in, and then we're here now. I mean, she's already, I think you've been here twice in the last 3 months. So like, I mean, you know, Merle's like family, but it should be, well, so what's on the horizon next? I'm curious. What are you thinking about? Like you've done the 44 kilometers.
Mhm.
What do you, like, I brought up this morning to you as a joke, Miami to Cuba, right? Like and that's been done. Like, is that something, is that something you would ever consider doing?
So I don't like to do things while other people have done it. I think that's my Eastern European side, or that Viking side, that I love to create something crazy, but other people haven't done it. But I have some, like, I created a new thing when I was training for my last record. And I showed to Guinness, and they actually said it might be my, like, I want to do more records, obviously, with the swimming without the arms, kicking like a dolphin. But I already have on the horizon another type of record to do it. And then, I mean, I still want to try for Olympics in 2024. This year, I'm building my startup, and I am being a little bit busy with different things, but
What event would that be, by the way, if you're swimming and if you're qualifying for the Olympics? What would you try to qualify for?
well, so the area where I come from, Estonia, we are really competitive in breaststroke. Like, all the breaststrokers are top 10 swimmers in the world. So I don't want to like go and interact there. So I'm still thinking to do the 10K open water or some freestyle long distance events in a pool. So because we don't even have a guys who do a distance swimming.
Wait, did you say 10K?
Yeah.
So what is that? What's 10?
6.2.
6 mile?
6 mile in a pool.
No, they have like an open water now event in the Olympics.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Since Beijing. Yeah.
And what type of time are people doing the 10K in?
Well, in the 10K, it's not about time qualification. It's about if you keep it up with the world and your country is qualifying, because they just changed 3 days ago the new rules for that. So
what are the rules?
Time would be tough because it's such different conditions from venue to venue, right? It's not like a pool, which is uniform.
yeah.
Right. So water temperature, current, whatever, all these things. Garbage.
Exactly. I mean, like the fact what was before, it could be like you have 25 people, but it doesn't matter if there is like 4 Americans qualifying. Now they say 1 person per country can qualify for that. So that means already some of the competitors are out, and me as coming from a small country, I have more opportunities. So.
Do you have any other, is there any other big competition for you in Estonia? Is there anyone who does kind of what you do, or that's gonna pose as a threat?
No, we actually also, there is a relay now, what is coming to Olympics. So I'm looking a second female, because you have to have 2 females, 2 guys. And it's really hard. Like everybody swims 5K, but you know, if you're an open water swimmer, you have to handle long distance. You have to, and the one thing when I see a lot of girls don't like to handle, you know, swimming against the current, getting beat, like it's a cat fight kind of sport, because everybody hits each other.
Oh, and get kicked in the face. Yeah.
Right. And they do it sometimes on purposely. It's just like
It's like water polo.
And then when you come in, like we have a place where it's a feeding station. Sometimes, you know, they're there with the fishing net, you have the water bottle, and sometimes swimmers doing that on purpose, you know.
Oh, so nasty.
So yeah, they get the yellow and red cards on that sport. So
Do you really?
yeah, I had a situation where I went home with the purple eye, and that's why I'm saying that not many females in Estonia are willing to take that kind of.
Yeah, but if it means them being, you know, potentially competing in the Olympics,
right?
And you know, why not? Like, why not just like that and start training 5K to 10K? I mean, all right.
There was an incident, just so I'll let Don know, there's like a beer league hockey in Canada here, and there were 2 guys on the ground, and one guy kicked the other guy in the face with a skate. And so it's like made the news, and they're getting the police involved. So yeah, getting kicked in the face, not good, especially with a skate.
It's a different story. In the water, you can kind of justify that. On ice,
I guess, yeah.
I had a situation where my competitive swimmer she was behind me, so I wasn't involved, but her shoulder got dislocated because somebody hit her that way. So during the competitions, these things can happen.
Yeah, what injuries? You must have a list of injuries. If you're a breaststroker, your knees must be a little sore. What other injuries have you had over your career?
Well, mostly my neck, right? When I was telling about it, the knees, especially when I went to triathlon, it was hard because I was still a breaststroker and I loved to run, because my grandpa was a distance run champion in Soviet Union, but it's just like those kind of breaststroke knees, and the running doesn't sometimes work it out. Mostly the shoulder problems, you know, that has been like, we have to really take care of our shoulders, and flying around the world constantly doesn't help for that. And but I have had more health problems regarding on my lungs, and that I was for a while in my sporting career, I could be one day in a competition and next day in a hospital because I ate something what caused me like I couldn't breathe, and later it came out I'm just gluten like I can't handle, you know, food certain way than other people can, because like one of the most common thing when I'm struggling right now when I'm trying to do my long distance record is that I'm really low in iron, but I'm that naturally. So when I went to do the test, they said with all the iron levels, it seems like even impossible what I'm doing. But I know that I have that naturally. So I'm trying again on my mind to kind of work against the odds, you know? So I never allow doctors to tell me that there is something wrong with me. So I can be in one day in hospital, but the next day in the competition.
It's interesting. Wow. It's interesting to hear some of our, besides your past injuries, but like you got a bad man of war bite on your glute. Really? Like your lower glute. Yeah. I mean, this thing like ripped you up pretty bad. And I remember you telling me about it. What was?
But I kept going. So
you got it, right?
I got the 2nd-degree burn on the man of war. So my body went right away to shock. I couldn't feel young, but I knew I had to get the workout done because I have a record coming up. So I kept going for 2 hours and then deal with that later in a emergency room. So.
You know, it's amazing, Derek, sometimes, you know, I think one area of the strength and conditioning world that's, I think, gone a bit overboard is this whole discussion of readiness, right? And it's, you know, we're using all these, and listen, I work with Aura, I love Aura, I use Aura for sleep. The only reason why I have an Apple Watch is because I just got out of the water, so I like measuring my open water, my pool water. Actually, it's spot on. Like when I'm doing, you know, I'm in a 25-yard pool training to the yard, it's giving me the exact, it gives me splits, like it's actually very useful. But I think that people start falling on that excuse at times. I got adrenal fatigue, or, you know, I'm worn down. And a lot of times I'm finding out, I'm like, no, you're just out of shape, right? And that was something that really impressed me with the SEALs. When I started working with them, I want to say close to a decade ago, maybe a little bit less. You know, I would not go as far to say that the ones I were around were these exceptional athletes, right? They weren't brute strong, or they didn't have this endurance, that they just had this will, and they had this this mental fortitude to be able to push. And I used to almost bash a lot of the training in the past, like, oh, that's ridiculous. They're just they're just throwing stuff in the air and hoping that they finish. And what I found out is that's kind of what they need to do. Like, this is not really, yeah, you want to condition them properly, and yeah, you want to make sure their bodies are healthy, but this is really more about, can your minds handle the task? And I think it's gone, you know, to the point of maybe, you know, fault. Like, you hear people who, you know, were having contests underwater, and you hear people that are, you know, military that have died, you know, doing that and holding their breath holds, right? And you hear specific stories that you're like, okay, like that's a different gear. I was talking to one of the people I was helping out, who happened to be a SEAL, and I heard a rumor that he drowned. So when we were getting to know each other, I asked him, I said, let me ask you a question. In SEAL training, it was such a misconception. I'm like, are they really trying to drown you? And he was like, and he wasn't saying this from an egotistical standpoint. He wasn't trying to show off. He was like, no. He's like, that's not what they do. He goes, but I got to be honest with you, when you're underwater and you're doing a task, he goes, because it happened to me. They had to pull me out of the water. I was unconscious. He goes, I was underwater for about 5 minutes, and I was so focused on the task at hand that I just drowned. And I didn't know what happened until they were pumping my stomach. And I was like, that's interesting, because when I'm underwater, and, you know, I'm like, there's never a task I'm underwater doing. But I guess when you're, but that's the gear, right? And I think that's, you know, when you have our country's, you know, most brave, you know, soldiers that are going to protect us, which I know, you know, all of us, whether you're from our country or not. You passed a comment the other day. You're from Estonia, you live in the U.S., but the respect you had for the U.S. military, right? Can you explain that for a second? Because I thought that was big.
So Estonia was occupied by Russia, and we were occupied by communism. And I remember when we, like, my grandmother actually was from the Russian tank and said, you can shoot me or give me my country back. And my dad was taken on a gunpoint to communist army, and he hates everything about communists. But one thing when my parents taught me is that the taste of freedom is so thin that you have to appreciate the people who fight for it. And Estonia is part of, you know, NATO. So there has been so many, like, Estonian and American soldiers were in Iraq, and they were in Afghanistan, and they're right now we have American NATO people in Estonia to keep those areas safe. And same time, Estonia is #1 in cybersecurity in NATO. So like, regardless, are you from Estonia, or you just appreciate these people everyday work to keep because the taste of freedom is really thin. And I have experienced that because I grew up having little taste of communism and seeing Estonia being free and part of European Union and part of the global world, but remembering how we were pressured and put in on a box, and how we were saying, like, you don't even exist in the world, right? And now when I see any soldier in the street, I appreciate it, because they put their life on a danger that we can wake up in the morning and think about, oh, what kind of Netflix movie we want to see, right? Like those kind of freedoms are so important, and I feel sometimes people don't understand, they take in granted that, you know.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah. What would you have to say to people nowadays who I think people like, oh, they're taking away my freedom by making me do this or that in this country, or at least in my country and your country, Don. But, I think people, like you said, people don't realize what they have in
Mhm.
terms of freedom and ability to do it, choice, right?
Right. I mean, like the stories what I can hear from my Estonian people, the athletes, like you go to practice in the morning and you don't know if you have a country in the night or who runs your country, right? So you have to train under that pressure to become the best of the best. And this is something what I carry on myself out of everything what I do in the life, because I truly appreciate what I have and what also America has given to me, because I am, from Estonia, living in America. And for example, when I swam my record last year, Miami mayor gave me my own day in Miami, like those things, like
it's nice.
you don't take like, oh, whatever. No, it's like, you understand there are so many people who want to build this beautiful democratic world, and we just sometimes forget it, and that's why I'm so happy to do the swim tomorrow with Dawn.
And Derek, this was never, for me, this is not a social media opportunity. This is not, you know what? This is the reason why I did this is because I'm very connected to Dr. Gabrielle Lyon, who opened the world to me and introduced me to her husband, who was a SEAL, and someone that I consider, both of those two people I just named, I consider family, but also one of their good friends, Jason Redman, who has, I think has done more for our country than, most could ever dream, and has gone through more hardship and is truly an inspiration. But when I was helping Jay out with some of his training, when he said he was going to do this, I almost felt like, Jay, I'm going to do it with you. Like, I don't want you, like, you've got a tough couple of months with work and everything. And I know you've got your family, meaning your military side of the family, but, your coach should be here, doing this with you. And we should be in that water together to, try and raise money for an incredible cause. But also, I think it's a symbol. I think it's showing appreciation in a way for so many people that go off and put their life on the line for us, just so we can feel safe. And it's something, as I'm getting older and I'm around more and more of them, maybe when I was younger as a kid, listen, you take it for granted. Like my 13-year-old son's not sitting there waking up every day going, oh, I appreciate that we're living in a free country. He's waking up and he's doing his stuff and his schoolwork and playing sports. And he's a great kid. Like, my daughter actually probably thinks about it a little bit more because she's a little bit more political than he is. But I think as I get older now, it really, you have to recognize it and you have to appreciate it when you hear about what's going on in other countries. I mean, it's scary, it's sad, and all we can do, I think, is show appreciation to our military, because we need them. We really do. They're the ones who protect us. They're the ones who make us feel safe.
Yeah, and I mean, like one thing what I have been starting realizing lately is, like, again, going back to cybersecurity stuff, like it's so important to keep those things, because we want to run our successful businesses and being entrepreneurs and raising funds and all that, but it's so important to keep the country safe from on the cyber world as well. And why not to do that with sport, because it's also so many kids are getting taken away because the cyber is taking over their life, and I was so like it means so much to me that I'm going out there tomorrow with SEALs and learning from them something what I can take it to my life.
Which makes me feel good, right, Derek? Because someone who's, not from the US, but you live here now, and you're as proud as you are about Estonia. I feel like you're proud of the United States also, and what you've created, the fact that you left and went to Miami with nothing, and you built a business and a career and a name and positive influence that you've been, portraying on people and cleaning up our oceans and all these great things. I mean, you're a great human being. You are, and that's part of it. And the fact that she's coming in with me right now to help represent the United States, I think that's it's a great example. It's also showing, hey, I'm not from your country, but I'm there and I love it. And, we're all in this together type of thing. So I'm excited for tomorrow. And again, hopefully we raise a couple bucks, and I'm going to leave the GoFundMe link up for a few weeks, hopefully, so we'll get this out soon. If someone's interested in donating, go to my bio, and you can click on my link tree under GI GoFund, which is the second tab down. If I had every one of my social media followers donate $1, I'd be thrilled. Like that'd be incredible. And that's really what it comes down to. I don't think there's no donation too big or too small, and it's going to go 100% of the proceeds are going to go to that cause. So yeah, thanks for coming on today. D, you got anything else?
Yeah, well, it's nice that the government just passed that bill to help the veterans too. And yeah, if you're ever in Vancouver, I know some good high-level swim clubs that you could train with. So yeah.
Vancouver, Canada.
In Canada,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
Oh, I always wanted to go to Vancouver because there is a bunch of Estonians there.
There is. Who
I
knew?
don't know why they're everywhere.
Estonians everywhere. Merle, can you tell everyone where they can find you on social media?
You can find me through Instagram. It's called Aqua with the Q and then Mjerle. So when I pronounce, it's like Aqua Merle.
Merle. We just call her Merle.
Like it sounds.
It's like her nickname. Tone and I call it. I call her that. I call her that because that's how Tone pronounces it.
Merle.
Yeah, because Tone always says Merle, and it's just Tone can't pronounce.
I'm like, it's Merle.
Merle.
Yeah.
Merle.
Oh,
We just call you Mermaid.
Yeah, just the Mermaid. And if somebody knows, I want to do the movie Splash. So
She's got to do a remake of it.
Sure.
Has to. Blonde. She's like, how tall are you? 5'5"?
Tom Hanks, one of Tom Hanks'
6
sons.
feet tall.
Yes.
She's 6 feet tall, blonde from Estonia.
Yeah, easy casting.
Easy. She's got Daryl Hannah. How tall is Daryl Hannah? 5'8", 5'7"?
No clue.
I'm just making it up. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dee, thank you very much. Dee,
Okay,
that was fun today.
that was great. That was fabulous. Thank you very much.